Welcome to Stuff Not Taught in School, a series of videos about stuff not taught in school. Many of the topics are sensitive, but all are important. Thus, all ages are encouraged to view. Today, I want to speak about inadequate sleep and uncontrollable sexual thoughts. I want to preface by stating that not all sexual thoughts are bad. The problem comes when those thoughts lead to things such as watching porn or being cheating on a loved one. Then those thoughts can become problematic. The way that this video is structured, I speak about 4 anecdotes that I realized yesterday, and I intertwine a few other anecdotes I read online, and then I discuss it and then I bring in some scientific discussion related to my anecdotes. So the first anecdote is that 2 weeks ago I had 3 wet dreams in 1 week, whereas prior to that I was having probably 1 wet dream in 3 weeks. I also noticed that my desires for porn were much greater that week than they had been for months prior. So I asked myself what had been different about 2 weeks ago than had been for the months prior, and I realized it was jet lag. I had moved 7 hours away from my time zone, and my circadian rhythm was totally off. 2 nights I had slept around probably 4 or 5 hours each, and then another night I was very horny and couldn't sleep. And then it took around a week total for my sleep schedule to get back to match the sun in my new time zone. And until that happened, during that week, my sexual thoughts were just much more uncontrollable than they had been. And I was curious if this happens to other people, so I did a search online and I found some anecdotes. One person wrote, "I find the sheer glamour of flying halfway around the world to be a tremendous aphrodisiac, and that a good shag is required as a matter of urgency soon after landing." I don't know who this person is shagging, but if it's not that person's loved one, there could be some issues. Because if that matter of urgency relates to, would cause watching porn or cheating on a loved one, as I mentioned before, this could be problematic. So too, someone responded, "Strangely, I feel really horny after a long journey as well." 2 more search results on different websites. People began forum questions with, "Why does lack of sleep make you hornier?" And someone else asked, "Do you get extra horny when you're sleep deprived?" So the question, as I mentioned twice so far, is are these sexual thoughts being transferred to one's loved ones, or are they becoming possibly problematic? So my second anecdote is that Saturday nights would be problematic for me for years until recently, because I'd be watching porn for 6 hours sometimes. I'd be up till 4, 5, 6 in the morning, and my decisions, my judgment was terrible. I'd be there 3, 4 in the morning just saying like, oh, just one more round, and I'd be falling asleep and my hand would slip off the mouse. And like, dude, I should have gone to bed, but I didn't because my decision making was just terrible. So too, I would notice recently, like when I was in my earlier stages of trying to quit porn, not super early, but whatever, a year ago or so, I'd say to myself like, oh, I don't need to watch porn. I just need to do a quick search for this term and I'll be fine. Yeah, 2 hours later, that's when I was fine. So that's my second anecdote. And basically what I realized yesterday was what was different about Saturday nights. And I realized during the week I'd be waking up and going to bed around the same time every night. But came Friday nights, I'd be going to bed later. Came Saturday mornings, I'd be waking up later. And though I'd be getting usually around the same amount of sleep, if not more, it wasn't regular sleep, and that was messing up my sleep cycle. And I returned to that idea in my 4th anecdote. But in the meantime, my 3rd anecdote is that what I noticed yesterday is that I had written that around January 12th, porn is finally out of my system. And that was after months of being without porn, but still having urges, which were preceded by months trying to get off porn, but not being able to. And so I was thinking yesterday, what enabled that to happen? And then I realized a few weeks prior to January 12th, prior to me stopping to have the desires for porn, I started reading a book called Why We Sleep by the author Matthew Walker. And I'm not getting paid to say this or to endorse the book at all, but it's a fabulous book. I truly recommend it to everybody. And basically this book was so compelling that I started reading it. I was like 20 pages in and I was like, wow, I need more sleep. And what did I do? I started getting 9 hours of sleep and I felt great. And my desires for porn by January 12th were non-existent. My fourth and final anecdote of my own is that since I got back into a normal circadian rhythm, in rhythm with the sun, I've noticed that my self-control and my just grounding have just been so much more powerful. I'm just feeling better. I'm more in control of myself in terms of a lot of things. But speaking specifically now about sexual desires, I'm interested in one person and one person only. I don't have desires for porn. Don't have desires to be with anyone else. Not even sexually attracted to anyone else. That I attribute that to the regular sleep I'm getting now. Because what's different now versus in Brooklyn, yes, I was sleeping in Brooklyn, but there was some artificial light. It wasn't always regular sleep. And what I mean by that is that since I've been living here, I don't use artificial light. And if I do go out to synagogue for evening services, which is like just before nightfall, I put on sunglasses. So I'm getting zero to minimal artificial light. And I'm waking up with the sun at 5, going to bed with the sun around 8:30 p.m., 8:35 p.m., whatever it is this week. But it's the same time every night. And though it gets a little bit, when the days get longer, those hours change. Sunrise gets a little bit, when the days get shorter, the sunrise gets a little bit later and sunset gets a little earlier. But the idea is that those changes are very minimal, maybe by a minute or two a day at most. But just keeping to those schedules and having sunlight being the stimulus for keeping me awake and telling me to go to sleep, kicking in the melatonin and shutting the melatonin in the morning, that's been amazing for me, and that I realized has been giving me such good control over the porn urges. So I just want to mention one more thing, which is called hangover horn, which is the idea that I found a few hits about this online when I was searching today for this video. Hangover horn is the idea that people are hornier when they're hungover. So to cite some scientific studies, Walker mentions in the book, he doesn't talk about hangover horn, but basically hangover horn is the same as sleep-deprived horn, because what Walker does discuss in the book is that people who are awake for 19 hours, that's like waking up at 7 o'clock, going to work, and then still being awake at 2 a.m., as Walker puts it, that person's brain is functioning as well as if that person is legally drunk. And Walker speaks further, says that before surgery, you should ask your doctor, how much sleep did you get last night? Because if the doctor says 5 hours, you might as well have seen the doctor open up a hip flask, take a swig, and said, okay, I'm ready for surgery. Walker also mentions that people who have been drinking, they wake up like every hour during the middle of the night, and they're just not getting quality sleep. And they have no recollection of this because they'd been drinking. So I don't have the Walker book on me right now. I gave it to a friend to read because it's just that great. So, but when I get it back, I want to provide exact citations in the description section below. In the meantime, I just want to say that Walker discusses the following concepts and cites studies which talk about lack of sleep causing less judgment, poor decision making, less self-control, and less impulse control. So if you're more likely to make a poor sexual decision, such as deciding to watch porn or deciding to cheat on a loved one when you are drunk, then it's very likely that you're just as likely to make that poor decision if you're sleep deprived. So my recommendation, if you don't want to have those uncontrollable sexual thoughts, is to get more sleep and more regular sleep, and I hope shortly to get a video up about those topics.